Welcome students, let's have the new session. In today's session, we shall discuss about corporate forms in tourism. Corporate forms in tourism. To understand the corporate forms in tourism, let us first go to the objective of this unit and then we shall detail things further. The objectives of this unit are to describe the functions of the main business form. So that means there are more than one business forms that we need to take care of or need to understand. Next is something like what are the business forms like sole proprietorship, partnership, a company. We shall go in each of them to understand what is sole proprietorship, what is a partnership, and what is a company. We should also see the advantages and disadvantages of these business forms. In this whole unit, which will be divided into 3 subsections, we should also appreciate the features of each business form. Now, I'm very sure that you would have actually, worked on segments of tourism industry. Let's revisit them. In TS1 Unit 5, you must have discussed various segments of tourism industry, and along with various types of services. Now, tourism facilitates and services are provided by a variety of organizations with the different types of ownership. Yes, the word says ownership. So when you talk about ownership, so I'll give you a very good example here. So when you go to a tourism destination, let's say, again, as usual, I take one destination which is close to my heart. Let's say you go from Delhi to Jammu. Now in Jammu, you see there are a destination called Patnitop, or there's a destination called Mansar. Now this Mansar is a lake, and Patnitop is a hill station, right? Who owns that lake? Who owns that hill station? There are some hotels for sure, there are some restaurants for sure, but who owns the destination itself? So that comes the ownership. Now, on the contrary, if you ask your example, who owns restaurant A or restaurant B in a particular destination, let it be Delhi? So you will say person A or person B, which is a private person who owns a destination. Let's say if it's owned by an owner who's a private person rather than a government organization, it's referred to as a private sector. But when it comes to government sector, it comes public sector. There are some other organizations, ownership also, something called PPP, which is public and private partnership. Another sector, that is another way that this runs in hospitality and in tourism. Now, do you think there are again further 2 divisions? One when they do for profit, one then they do not for profit. So there's an organization called for-profit organization, the other organization not-for-profit organization. We shall discuss. So for-profit organizations, their main motive is, yes, they do business, but their objective is to make sure when they do business, they have something profit coming out of it. All right? Any restaurant, any hotel, any organization which is running in terms of a business and comes back as they want, end of the day, they have, calculated amount of money they want back from that particular business that they're running. That will be a restaurant, anyone, right? And that's fair. But when you come to instead, you look at it, we have a government organization who is looking for environment. So what would they do? They have wildlife sanctuary, right? So wildlife sanctuary is actually to conserve the environment, right? To conserve the wildlife. But at the same time, there's a tourism, activities going on over there. So this is a tourism activity. This is actually into a wildlife. You go into the wildlife, you have tours over there, you have some activities over there. But the purpose is to make sure that we conserve the environment, right? So they are actually looking at not mainly for the profit that comes out of it, but their profit comes in conserving the environment, the flora and the fauna and whatnot. So that's because not for profit and profit. So there are organizations called non-government organization, NGOs. That's another organization that could be a part of it. So in our sector, in tourism sector, we may have segmentations of each of them, right? Now, they all exist together and we will actually come across, it could be in small organization, or it could be the bigger organizations. Now, you must remember that all the enterprises or all the businesses that are there in tourism, they are all aiming at transforming available resources into tourism products. So we need to understand what are available resources. I'm sure by now you understand available resources could be natural or man-made. Natural resources could be mountains, snow, river, seabed, or also not seabed, I would say a seashore, any coastline, anything, even lakes. So they're natural, right? Artificial could be when you have monuments, when you have a palace, when you have a building or a haveli, many things. You have any parks and museums that you have made, they are actually man-made, right? Now, so all these organizations are using any of those in transforming into it. So that becomes a tourism product. That means when a product is there, that means when a person can go and enjoy the services at that particular destination. So that destination becomes a product. Let's say, again, I'll take an example. If there is a Mansar, which I'm giving an example in Jammu, Mansar actually becomes a destination. That is a product. What is Mansar using? Mansar is using local flora, plants, animals, fauna, then local. Even you would say when you go on the way, you see some huts, old huts are made of thatch and wooden. You would see some people, who are actually dressed locally. And not only that, Mansar is actually using its lake. It's a huge lake they're using. They have a lot of players come over there. There's a lot of boating. The people with the horses, they do the business, horse riding, and then there is assets people, restaurants or the eateries are there. There's a government accommodation. So what I'm trying to say is that becomes a tourism product because that is a place which attracts people, have the amenities, accessibility, amenities like toilet, where they can go for toilet, car parking, or government services. They have accessibility by road. You can reach over there from Udhampur, from Jammu. They have attraction, that is the lake itself is attraction, and there's a fort nearby lake, that's another attraction. What is this? Amenity, attraction, access, accessibility, accommodation given by your Jammu Kashmir government. So that's again becomes a product where a person can go and stay and enjoy. It could be a day trip, it could be an overnight stay, but that becomes a tourism product. So what I'm trying to give you example was that, that all these entities, all these businesses, they use the resources available. So that resources could be man-made or that could be, natural. Now, obviously, all those, because we're talking about various forms of businesses that are there, corporate forms of businesses which are there in tourism. So these actually are guided or they are influenced by various factors, such as maybe as someone who's actually putting up a tea stall or a small, souvenir, outlet like a cafe or souvenir cafe, souvenir shop, or maybe a stall, maybe a handicraft. Maybe he's doing by hand some painting. So they may have less amount of money, and this could also be a bigger hotel chain could be there, which has more bigger amount of money. So what is happening is that there are a lot of regulations which take care of the size and the way they manage taxation policies, and there are could be some constraints like skills. What is the organization? Is it a not-for-profit organization or it is a for-profit organization? What are the objectives and motives? And all that is actually involved while you preparing the destination, or what the objectives are there in terms of operations, in terms of when you are setting up a business in a particular destination. So all those different corporate forms can be from smaller to bigger, can be from partnership to public to private, part or to a partnership, and that also they coexist in the tourism system or tourism destinations. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take few principal business forms and discuss in detail from those forms. But I'm sure by now I've given you a bit of understanding about different forms of tourism businesses that happen in tourism sector. Okay. Now, they do differ from each other, for sure. They do differ from each other, and obviously we will actually discussing those differences also. Now, not just the differences, we shall also look at what could be the advantages and disadvantages of different business forms. So I give one example, that business is ownership, or a business is a public ownership or a private ownership. So when there's a public ownership, that means we're looking for the best interest of the community or industry, or taking care of flora, fauna, and nature. So they have more interest into developing the environment, more interest in developing that overall society. That means the tickets could be lower priced, they might be higher. Have you ever seen the tickets at any zoo, or and tickets at monuments? Even if you go to Taj Mahal, you look at the ticket, or if you go to Lal Killa, you look at the ticket pricing, right? Wherein when you go to movie theater, you look at the ticket pricing. So it's a huge difference, isn't it? So again, private theaters they're privately owned. They're not a tourism destination, but then I can just give an example. But wherein, if you look at hotels, if you look at any theme parks, you have Apu Ghar was there, right? Yeah, earlier. So you have a lot of theme parks come up. Look at the ticket at theme parks and look at the ticket at Lal Killa. So you'll see the difference in both. Okay, now, so that's again, they have advantages and disadvantages based on what business structure they will come on. And obviously now, let's look at more specifically the topic in the initial to start with. I would like to start with description of the concepts, and the concepts of the market, the service, and the industry. So let's decipher or detail these three concepts of the service, market, and industry. Now, we shall take one thing at a time. Number first, that all those different forms in corporates of business have come up because as a society we grew, right? If you go back centuries and centuries before, it used to be everyone used to prepare their own, in the farms. They used to have, someone has a milk, will have milk to give it to someone else. Instead of milk, he will take something else what he needs, or clothes, or food, or iron, whatever. There used to be barter system, right? Then the currency came, and then people started using currency to give, buy milk and whatnot. And then that's exactly how the whole society is working so far, right? And that's how we develop and grow, and the different currencies coming up. And I'm sure you would have heard of something called cryptocurrency, which is still at the moment it's a naive, it's not coming up yet anyways. So the point comes over here that the system of buying and purchasing things, goods and services, is actually being coming from quite a large number of years, and that is actually done for the survival of the whole society and product, and that really brings the development in the product. Now, our product actually is tourism, right? So in tourism product, that means what do we sell? That's another big question I really want to ask you. If I have to sell a mobile phone, which is a product, right? So what instead will be a tourism product, which I just explained you earlier. So in our tourism product, and when you go to a Mansar place, you actually don't buy and bring anything with you, isn't it? You spend money though, maybe more than what you're spending on a mobile phone, but you don't get anything with you except for your experiences, except for maybe a few photographs clicked on it, right? And those are moments that you carry with you, and that's what this tourism all about. Okay, it becomes a little bit complex to make you understand that about product and service, but for sure we shall be able to decipher this. Okay, now what we used to do, as I said earlier, that even now what happens in the business world, that we exchange, right? We exchange goods and services, right? We exchange commodities. So now we need to actually understand the word commodity. Now, what is a commodity, and how is a commodity different from goods, right? So as per the Oxford Dictionary, commodity is actually a raw material or a primary agricultural product that can be bought and sold, such as maybe copper or even coffee, right? So what is it? So it's a raw material that is primarily an agricultural product, but may not be, that can be bought and sold as per copper or coffee. Or you could also say Commodity is a good which is produced to be exchanged. It's not just a barter system, it's a good which is produced to be exchanged, to be bought and sold. So let's make it this way. So I have a product which is called mobile phone. So it is produced so that it can be exchanged. What do I exchange my mobile phone for? Money, currency, depending what currency value it may be. But yes, that mobile phone can be bought and can be sold. So the wholesalers they give it to retailers, and retailers give it to maybe vendors or maybe directly themselves, and then we buy as in customer. Now there's another thing that we need to, so that's a commodity. So let's go back and look and find out what goods are. So goods, it's a thing that gives us some satisfaction or utility when we use it or consume it. So goods, anything gives us some satisfaction or utility when we consume or use it. So what is something that we consume and use that gives us satisfaction? What do you think about food? Does it, you consume food, right? Maybe you're wearing clothes. Okay, so let's try to make it more simpler and give an example for you. Suppose you have a kitchen garden, which I have, and I grow thyme just across the window, and here you grow some vegetables for your own consumption, right? These vegetables are goods for own consumption, and they give you utility, okay, because I'm using it at home, but they are not commodities. You know why? Because they are not produced for sale in the market. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, my neighbor, I went to my neighbor, and I knew that he had a curry leaf tree. So my wife said, let's go and say hello and New Year wishes and all, and then look at his garden. His garden is beautiful. So I went to his house to look at the garden. When we were going around, my wife asked, is that a curry leaf tree? He says, no, this is the one. And you know what? He plucked the branches and he gave me some curry leaves and told me I can put this in and seed, give me some seeds also to put it and try to get my own tree. But then he said, whenever you need to take it. No, I did not actually pay him any money, but it was for his own consumption, right? And so for that, because he uses the curry leaves in his house and it is in his kitchen garden or in his backyard, that is a good. Similarly, I have a very big bush of rosemary with me. So the rosemary actually is a good for me because I use rosemary in my kitchen. So what I'm trying to say is that something that you use for your own purpose and not for produced and sales for the market is actually called goods, okay, and becomes commodity only when I put for sale. So if he gave me his curry leaf for sale, or if I gave him my rosemary for sale, that would have become a commodity, but it was not a commodity. It is actually just a product, a good, rather than a commodity. Now, again, in commodities, we have different forms. Let's look at the different forms of commodities. Now, the first, we talk about goods, and then we also call services. So goods and services also can be commodities. So I thought only goods were there. If I sold those rosemary in the market, and that becomes my commodity, but there is service also a commodity. So let's look at how come service be a commodity. Do you think you have an idea how can service be a commodity? Okay, let's see. Now, you own a car or a scooter or a cycle, whatever it is. So you have your scooter, car, cycle, whatever you have, and you ride your scooter or your cycle, or you drive your car for your own person work. That means you go to meet your friends, you go to school, or you visit somewhere. That is not a commodity because you are using for your personal use, right? Again, as same as my rosemary or curry leaves. But when you use the same car or the same scooter or the same cycle, and you give a service like auto rickshaw, it's again a scooter, but no person is using this to bring one person one place to another place, right? And he charges you money, isn't it? So at the time, the driving itself becomes a commodity, right? Now, so commodity is something which is used for payment of money in exchange of goods or services. Now, we need to go a little bit more into goods and services, right? Now, let's look at goods and services. When you sat in the rickshaw, okay, when you sat in the rickshaw, or even a car for that matter, and someone sat in your rickshaw or car, and you took a person from point A, let's say from Lal Killa, you picked a person from Lal Killa and dropped him up at your which place in Delhi, which is a good place you want to go. Let's go to Lotus Temple. So you picked up from Lal Killa and dropped at Lotus Temple, right? So what did your passenger get from you? Did you give him your auto rickshaw? No. You gave him just a ride from point A to point B, right? He does not own your rickshaw. You gave him to sit over there for some time safely from point A to point B, and you did for money, right? And that's exactly called service, right? Other way, you went to a restaurant and you actually gave money and they gave you pizza. The pizza is actually something is tangible. Tangible, you can feel, touch. Okay, you can touch, you can feel it, and that's exactly is a tangible. So intangible is something which is not seen, which are consumed and the process at the same time when they're produced. What is this? Consume? Can you consume pizza when it is produced? Well, no, they have to produce first and then give it to you, isn't it? Okay, so let me again explain you more easily. So for pizza, you have to actually cook the pizza and put in the box or whatever, right, and give it to you and you consume it. So production is separate, consumption is separate, right? Now, service. You're sitting in my rickshaw, right? So you have to sit in my rickshaw for me to give you a service. So my service only starts when you sit in my rickshaw or in my car, then I drive you. So my service is produced and consumed at the same time. Does it make sense? Yes. So this is where it is. The services are intangible. You cannot say, I had a taxi service, so rickshaw service. So you cannot take service home, right? You feel it, you experience it, and you pay the money for that. Similarly, when you go to a destination, right? Let's say you go to Lotus Temple, right, in Delhi. You go to Lotus Temple. So when you go to a destination, to a Lotus Temple, you feel the experience, the beauty of it, the calmness. You observe it. Maybe you take some pictures outside, right? And you sit over there for some time, you experience the vibes, and then you come back. So what did you bring with you? Nothing. The memories, the experience that you were there. So that's exactly a product. That again is something that you observe over there as a product, as a tourism product. Now, let's move on from here to look at something. I can give you one more example before we move forward in terms of service. So, service, I will tell you one thing. I said about pizza, right? Let's take pizza and divide pizza into a product and a service. A little bit difficult, but not impossible. Okay. Now, you paid 500 rupees and you got a pizza, right? Easy. Now, the two aspects of it. Pizza is something tangible that you can hold, you can see, it's a solid piece. But when you went to the counter to order the pizza, and the customer service person on the other side said, yes, what do you want? So, okay, give me 500. No, sorry, this is not available. So the way customer service is behaving is actually a service, because you're experiencing the things. Now, on the contrary, there's another customer service. He says, good morning, sir or madam, welcome. What would you like to have today? What pizzas? We have 3 different varieties of pizzas. This is on the board. Which one would you like? Oh, I like vegetarian. Okay, fair enough. Would you like with cheese, extra tomatoes, whatnot? What size? Oh, thank you. So how was your day today? Where have you been? Oh, okay, fair enough. Won't be long. Few minutes. I'll get your pizza ready. Meanwhile, you can have a sip of Coke and wait on the side till I serve the next customer. So what happens in both the ways? These both customer service attendants were there, but one was actually quite rude, other was actually quite polite. So they both were giving service, but one was quite rude, and you consumed the service. His hospitality was not that great, rather it was bad. So what you experienced was produced at the same time when he was saying you were experiencing, isn't it? And similarly, when the other person was nicely saying you were experiencing too. So what it tells us that service is produced and consumed at the same time. I'm sure this will give you more sense to what I'm saying and make it very clear for you. Okay, now let's go on to the next topic, or not topic. Next important aspect is something called market. So what is a market? Where does it exist? Have you heard of this word before? I'm sure you will have heard this word before. So buying and selling of goods and services and production of goods and services for exchange is the main, we can say, gist or hallmark of the market system of production exchange. Quite make it simple. So let's say we will take this way. We all have something. I have rosemary. My neighbor has got, I grow my rosemary and I've got rosemary garden in my field. Other person has curry leaf garden, other person has oranges garden, other person has some other vegetable garden. So we bring all our vegetable to bring it to one place where our goods and services are produced so that it could be exchanged for money, right? So the system, the market is a place where people, grow or develop product or services for sale. Now I'll make it easier. So first step is where people, the whole system where people grow products or services for sale. So products could be, I'll bring it to tourism. So products could be where people set up their own travel agency. Why would someone set up a travel agency in Delhi? Why would someone set up a travel agency in Jammu? So that people, he can give services to people. He can guide people where to go, what time of the year to go, to book the ticket, to book the hotels, to book the transport, and any tour guide or any such services, right? So that is a place. So it's a tourism market, right? So this is where it's a market, is a place where, so I know as a customer that if I want to book a ticket, where do I go? Nowadays it's online, right? So we used to have yatra.com. It is still there. Yeah. There's so many more now, isn't it? What are they? They actually are service providers. They are in the market which gives you services. So the goods are produced or services are ready for you to use. So that who created, someone who actually had an idea about to start a travel agency. So the person who starts a travel agency, and the person may have a transport bus agency for taking from Delhi to Jammu. Other person may have a tour guide agency to take people, or someone may have another agency where they help you in maybe skiing. They take you paragliding. So all different services are there, isn't it? And someone may have hotels for people to come and stay. So all this market, this is called market, where people exchange goods and services, okay, for money, which is usually a currency. Okay, now I will also take you as per the dictionary meaning. So as per Oxford Dictionary, market is a regular gathering of people, bring all things together for purchase and sales of provisions, even livestock and other commodities. Commodity is something for sale, right? So as per Oxford, so the place where people come, gather together to purchase and sell and purchase the commodities. Or you can also say market is an abstract term which seeks to denote a system. That means, again, it's a system where people come and in a systematic way, people sell the goods and services, and other people purchase the goods and services. They're done by voluntary exchange between people. So does someone tell you, or hey, you go and buy vegetable today? No. If you feel that your vegetable are finished in the day, you go and buy it, right? Does someone tell you, no, you must go to tourist destination now today, let's go? No, you don't do that, right? It's a voluntary action. When you want to go, when you feel like going, when you see that you have money, you have time, and it's availability over there. It's both way, they're available, they're ready to welcome you, and they have the space to welcome you. You're ready to pay the money they want, and why not? So that's where the market comes in. Okay, now a market where, as I was giving example, that could be a market of a tour package, market for hotels. Now, who actually uses these markets? Who is the person who goes to this market and uses this market? So the first thing that we look at it, market for whom? For consumers, right? So who is the consumer? So consumer is a person who uses the products or services, right? Now, there are two sides of it. One production side, one consumption side. So production side, who comes production? All the business houses or suppliers, producers, merchants, retailer, franchisers of hotels, restaurants, of your tour agencies, travel agencies, tour guides. All those people are producers, right? Consumption, your tourists. They go to a destination, they stay in a hotel, they eat in a restaurant, they use the tour guide services, they use the taxi services. They're consumers, right? So producers, consumers. But we should also look at the Oxford Dictionary definition. It says consumer is a person who purchases goods and services for personal use. So anyone who uses goods and services, they'll call it a consumer. Now, obviously, consumers, they have a demand, right? Because again, the whole system of business runs on the concept of meeting consumer or customer needs. So I need to go, let's say I need to go from Delhi to Jammu, I need to have a transport, right? So I create a demand, isn't it? Because I'm going from Delhi to Jammu, so I need to go. I may go by aeroplane, I may go by train, I may go by taxi, or I may go by bus. So people like me, all together, we created demand, right? And who has the seller is one who fulfills my requirements and complies with my demands, and that's why there is supply side from there. Okay. What happens is this force that, because let's say if there are too many customers, right? Let's say I'll give a very good example. I still remember when I used to go to Jammu from Delhi, and what used to happen. And Jammu is a town in the north of India, Jammu and Kashmir. Sorry if I've not told you before, for some of you. And Delhi is the central capital of India. So when I used to go from Delhi to Jammu, especially on Friday afternoon, Friday nights, the tickets used to be very, very expensive. You know why? Because there were many more people who wanted to go by bus than there were buses available. So that was a force that made them increase the price, because on Monday to Thursday, there were very less people who used to travel from Delhi to Jammu. So what used to happen? They used to have low profits there. So they used to cover up by increasing the price, and that's how, or maybe increasing the number of buses. Okay, now who's the driving force? It's demand and supply, isn't it? So that's a driving force for the price. As I said, they used to increase the price because obviously they used to cover their losses when they used to do it in the weekdays. Okay. What happens is that when a person who's purchaser or consumer or a buyer, the supplier tells, hey, this is my ticket price. That's actually supplier communicating to consumer. That means I'm passenger, I want to go, I look at the ticket price, it was 500 rupees early, now it is 800 rupees. So what is supplier telling me? Okay, this is information for you, this much is how much it's going to cost if you want to buy. But if I don't buy, someone else will buy. I'm very sure, because I know, especially if you have to go by Volvo bus, you don't get it. And I mean, I have experience, but things would have changed by now. But I'm telling you where I used to go just 10, 12 years back, or maybe more than that. Okay, so so what happens is the sellers they supply some more stuff along with the price because they give them a lot of extra value. They add value to their product or service. Let's say, I'll give you an example here again. When you go to buy a mobile, right? You go to buy a mobile. Okay, you want a mobile? Yes, I want a mobile. They ask you what is the price range, right? The first question is price range. But the matter of fact is, the fact of the matter is, they should be asking you what quality you want. What what is the features that you're looking at in your mobile phone, isn't it? Because the features, the extra features they put in the mobile phone, it's more expensive and expensive. I can have a mobile phone worth rupees 2,000 rupees also, and I can have a mobile phone worth rupees 60 or 80,000 also. They both have the basic purpose to communicate with person A to person B while you're away from your landline, isn't it? So your 2,000 rupees mobile will also receive a phone call and can do a phone call, right? And your 80,000 rupees phone will also do a phone call. But the 80,000 phone has a lot of extra features on that, like 4 cameras, selfie cameras, front and back cameras, latest software, how much is the RAM, how much is storage capacity, what Snapdragon, what's it called, version is it, what is it iOS system using, so on and so forth, right? Now similarly, when you're flying by aeroplane or even by train, what class do you want to travel? So when you travel in a train, so you have a what's called sleeper class, you have a second AC, you have first AC, and we have a general coaches also, right? I tell you, all the people who board the train from point A reach to point B. Yes, it's a comfort level and whatnot in the different levels in price that you're expecting or you're ready to pay. Okay, so that's where they want to earn more profits out of it. They want to more, and that's why they will add values. So buyers are the same persons who are consumers, and they consume the goods and services. Now, what happens is that when the buyers they consume products and services, they actually tend to buy more if the prices are quite less. But again, that's again a dilemma in this, because the different strategies that you want to put your price of your commodity product or services. And here I'll give you one example again. I give you one example, mobile phone 2000. How much would you expect to buy what's it called, Apple iPhone X? Maybe let us cover more than that. And how much would you expect to buy a Redmi Note 2? Both are phones, right? So which is latest model, which is old model, right? So what happens is, usually when there's a lower on the price, so buyers look at, price has come down, let's go and get it. They go and get the when lower prices are there, but at the same time they actually look at the benefits too at the same time. But there's a very important thing which I want to tell you over here, because there's something called brand image. If there's a brand image that is created, like you go to 5-star hotel, you go to 7-star hotel, or 5-star hotels, you go to 1-star or 2-star hotels. So they both have facilities, and then there's a different brands, and every brand charges for the products and services that they provide, with the quality of products and services for that matter. An example I was giving you, Apple iPhone, or maybe Xiaomi and Redmi Note 2. So what comes over here is that there is a lot of variation in pricing of those products or services based on a lot of reasons, which I would say itself is a topic in itself. But for us to understand that, buyers may be hesitant to buy a commodity if it's very, very expensive. Okay, but if there's a genuine justifiable reason that a product or service provider can tell them and show them why it is expensive, and they convince them, sure, they'll buy. There are people who buy phones, like expensive phones and everything, and the people like me who really don't want to buy more than 10,000 rupees phones are, but for me, it's good enough if I have a 10,000 rupees phone and which is doing all those work which I'm supposed to do. Why should I really buy 60,000 rupees phone? Now, let's move on to the next topic, which is called industry. Now, industry is to mean totality of production of a particular goods and services. That means hospitality industry, tourism industry. Right? In the industry, all the production, consumption, everything happens. That's one industry. Okay. Now, what happens in the industry? It's a group of manufacturers or business that produces a kind of goods or service. Like I told you, tourism industry relates to tourism. Textile industry, it relates to all textile, clothing, design, development, fabrication, all. They sell clothes, right? In tourism and hospitality industry, you will have tourists, you have tourist destination, you'll have tour guides and services, you'll have airlines, you'll have what's it called, railways and roadways. You will have, which is mixed because others also use it, but you will certainly, for tourism itself, you will have hotels for people to come and stay. Okay, now what happens is that automobile industry uses cars. Food and beverage industry, they prepare food and beverage for various places like hotels. They produce for hotels, they produce for schools, they produce for army or for what's called police. And obviously this industry comes in the umbrella term for where all the particular goods and services from particular section of the businesses are done. It's called industry, right? Now, there are many different firms or companies. They manufacture motor cars, and then maybe from the economy level to very, very expensive car, but all of them, they fall in one category or one umbrella, which is called industry. Now, again, let's take two example of our tourism. So we have very small, operators in tourism, and like a small person sitting in a small town and having a small travel agency or a tour guide service or any such service, or it's a huge chain of hotels and huge, big, service industry people sitting, or big giants who are like Taj and Oberoi and all. They all give products and services in tourism. They come in one industry and one umbrella. So for now, I believe I have explained you the topic very well. So what I shall do it here, I'll stop it here for now, and then we shall see you in the next session. Thank you so much for today, and I'll see you next time soon. Thank you.